Hello, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome. Welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness and the highest levels of love light. Thank you for taking the time and energy to share in this video with myself and with one another. This is meant to be a little flow, and I want to share, I just did an energy update and it had more to do with the emotions and this feeling of disconnect that many people are feeling. And I just gave a little personal rant about what I've been witnessing myself and observing. So if you feel called to watch that, that was either the next video or the previous video. I don't know which order I'm going to post these in. I really wanted to draw a little attention to the sun and talk about that. And before I go into a inflow message from my higher guidance team is what I like to refer to it as, which is a collective of energy that I am connected to. And we all have this connection in our own way. And back to the sun. So the sun is a hot topic right now. No pun intended, maybe a little pun intended, but it's a hot topic. A lot of people are starting to recognize the impact that the sun is having on our physical bodies. It has an impact on, obviously, our planet, and therefore it has an impact on our body. So without going into all of the details, I really do intend to keep this simple. And the simple version is, so what do? Well, we just become aware of it and we find balance. And I'm going to keep saying this because the theme that keeps coming up again and again right now is balance, balance, balance. There are going to be moments. So if you're not aware of the solar activity, spaceweather.com is the site that I refer to from time to time. You don't have to fully understand it. I am a little bit at the stage where we have all these energetic updates, which can be very helpful, especially if we're in a place of needing to be validated on what we're feeling. And as humans, we all experience that from time to time. However, I am called to also share that if you're looking for, so I'll just say this, the Schumann resonance is going up. The sun is heating up. Our bodies are changing. How we interact with our reality is changing. Therefore, time and density is shifting. Therefore, everything is changing constantly. Therefore, are we having some energetic shifts? Yes. Is the sun going to be up and down? Yes. Are we going to feel imbalanced some days and out of balance other days? Yes. So the biggest message, in addition to what we're experiencing, is that we're experiencing a lot. So if you're feeling off, then most likely it's also, in addition to your own personal reasons for feeling off, probably getting a little help from the changes that are going on with our star and our planet, because everything is connected. Simultaneously, if the star is having an impact on us, and so what are some of the impacts that you might be feeling? So I just feel called, I've talked about this before, I'll say it again. You might feel more tired. So here's what I experience. Usually I experience the feeling of the unable to sleep. So I'll have this massive shift. I'm awake and I feel like electricity is running through my entire body. We might be really thirsty. We might feel these extreme highs and then an extreme crash, like we just can't get enough sleep. We might feel spacey. In my case, we might feel emotional, right? Where things get stirred up. What happens when you add heat? Think of the rising phoenix, right? Things heat up. We might feel agitated, anxious, right? And we're not sure why. There might be upset stomach. Sometimes it can cause heart palpitations, ringing in the ears. So there's a lot of people that are sharing that information. And so it can be very helpful to know that it isn't just you. We're all going through it in some way. Some people don't feel it at all, or they're not associating, they don't know why they're feeling what they're feeling. But I'm also being called to share not to blame any of the feelings that we're having on one particular thing, because it's not just the sun, right? Everything is connected. There's a lot of things that are changing in our molecular structure, and the sun is merely one aspect or one part of the system that is assisting us in expanding. We're having massive planetary conjunctions that I don't really understand, but I have so many synchronicities associated with those planetary conjunctions that I know that it is making an impact on our lives. And so this can take us into a place of excitability. It can take us into a place of fear. It really depends on, and that can oscillate. I talked about that in my previous video. So I'll be sharing again, let's not be so hard on ourselves. There's a lot going on. And so what I'm called to remind everybody of is to stay out of fear as much as possible, and to recognize that we just have to do what we have to do to find balance. And that might mean we might need more sleep. I hear people say all the time, I shouldn't be. And I talked about this again in my previous video. I shouldn't be feeling this. I shouldn't look like this. I shouldn't. Why not? I do it too. I say those things from time to time, and I catch myself saying, well, why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I be feeling tired? Maybe something's going on that my body needs me to recognize that I need more sleep. So we're really being called to shut off that voice, the internal dialogue that tells us, or also the external dialogue that says, shame on you for feeling this way. So drink a lot of water, maybe not exercise as much as you would on a day that you feel this way. Maybe that's the day to recover, or vice versa. Maybe you have heightened energy at 3 o'clock in the morning. Get up and get on your, on your bike, or do some yoga. Every body is different and will react differently to these energies because it affects them differently. But that's what I wanted to share, in addition to the other energetic components. What else? So I guess I'll go into a little inflow message from there. Oh, and to end on that, just be patient with ourselves and be patient with one another. I could do a video every day and say that same message over and over again, and it would still be applicable. So rather than looking for an energetic update, which I've labeled so many of my videos energetic update, because we do look for energetic updates, but I'm being called to remind everybody that if you're feeling it, yes. I've said this before. Are you feeling anxiety? Okay. Is there something going on with the sun that could possibly be creating that extra anxiety? Probably. And will this continue? Probably yes. Is the Schumann resonance going up and down? This is the energetic update, right? Is our body changing? Yes. Will things ever be the same again? No. There you go. So if we can remember that on a daily basis, we can then stop looking outside of ourselves for validation as to why we're feeling the way we're feeling. And then the things that are coming up simultaneously from this help from the sun, we'll say, is where we can start to focus on. And that's where the next message comes in. So I do it too. I say, okay, well, you're feeling this way because of the solar activity. But what comes with that? So for example, we're feeling anxiety. Maybe our heart is going fast, and that creates a feeling of anxiety that then we interpret as, or we go into a place of fear. Well, that's the juice. That's where I'm being called to go with this. When that happens, what I always say is acknowledge that we're in a place of fear, recognizing it rather than feeding it. And once we recognize it, it breaks that pattern, or it makes us aware of the pattern so we can then realize it, release it, clear it, but more importantly, feeling it first and not saying, I shouldn't be afraid, but you are. So what now, right? I shouldn't feel tired, but you are tired. So what do we do about that? a lot of times we're looking for reasons, but we're not necessarily finding the origination of it's the cause and effect. You know, maybe the sun is affecting us. It's bringing up these patterns for us to then see what we do in response. So how we're responding and thoughts that we're having are the key here. I said in my last video or next video, I'm not really sure, that the thoughts we have a ripple effect. So if we're in fear and we're like, yeah, the sun's going to explode and it's the end of the world and the earth is heating up and it's causing our ice caps to melt and fear. Well, don't beat yourself up. If you realize, right, this is what I've been called to do. Don't beat myself up if I've said that to people, not realizing that that puts them in a place of fear. I look at it like, what am I going to do about it? Well, if I freak out, how is that helping anything? It's not helping my physical health. It's not helping my mental or emotional well-being. And it certainly isn't affecting the field around me in a positive way. It's having what we might see as a negative impact in the field, but I just call it a lower frequency, right? It's a lowering of my frequency, which then allows in more fear. It allows in the lower frequency stuff that maybe is coming up for a reason. And so it is about us integrating all of this and processing it. So we just have to find that balance of, okay, what do I need to do to get out of fear right now or to process this fear? Where is this coming from? Well, is it fear of dying? Is it fear of fear for the earth? Is it fear for my family? And then we can begin to do what's necessary to process that. We might not even know why we're feeling that, but we can process that it's a feeling. And that's really what it's all about. And then we can do some breathing exercises to calm the nervous system. We can feel gratitude for our brothers and sisters who might be experiencing similar fear. We can feel appreciation for the sun for giving us our life. Without the sun, we wouldn't be here. Nothing would grow. And so rather than fearing this object, we come back into appreciation for there are many things that it's, so I'm just using that as an example. It could be it could be something else that we are afraid of, or it could be anger. Maybe this heat that's rising in our body creates anger and we start to feel frustrated at our neighbor who might be nosing into our business. Not that anybody has ever had that happen before, but we can then appreciate this anger that's coming up so that we can see, you know what, maybe they don't have a purpose in life. So they're harassing us because of their lack of whatever it might be. But seeing that and recognizing it without coming to a place of judgment, or maybe we do come into a place of judgment and we recognize that we're judging them for judging us. I mean, there's so many different angles and ways that we could look at this. We're constantly interpreting, right? And feeling these emotions. It gives us the ability to have that experience. And then when we calm and come back into a centered place, things start to roll off our shoulders. We start to let go of that anger. We start to let go of that fear. So in essence, we could look at this as a gift in some ways, even though it may not feel that way at the time. Whew, all right. So I'm going to go into a little flow, and this is going to, I think, talk a little bit about feelings and the fields. Let me just pause for a second. So when I go into this space, some people call it channeling. I go into a word flow, and words have a frequency. The frequency is a spin, and certain words can create a recognition in the body of whoever's listening or feeling into it. And sometimes it's just a message that is a higher vibrational message about what I'm feeling into. And so we can play with this. Sometimes light language comes through, which also has a sound and a frequency and a vibration that the body can then tune into to raise the frequency, potentially, depending on who's listening. and how they're feeling at the time. So I'm going to invite everybody to just take a deep breath in and kind of just come into a place of breathing relaxation, relaxing the shoulders, taking a breath into the chest and the belly, and then letting that kind of let that breath leave the body and come back in with ease. So I'm going to have some sounds that are coming through. I'm going to let that happen. And I hope this doesn't cancel it out, but bear with me. I haven't tested the mic. She ko e she na ke o hai neti she o moko e she ai ineti o ko e ne e she moko ana. And as we feel into the sounds that are emitted from our bodies, as we feel into the sound and the frequency that is all around with us, as us, moving through us, coming from us, we begin to reverberate a particular sound quality, one might say, a value system. We begin to frequent, if you will, into this frequency. We begin to up level and renew this ability to recognize a higher exchange ability. This is a play on words. We come into the ability to exchange higher information, higher frequency, a higher base. Sorry. We raise our baseline. We allow ourselves to line up with a deeper resonance. And so many of us are being called to come back into the resonance of the heart-based frequency of, I'm hearing relativity, and this is a play on words. I'm thinking of the theory of relativity, right? Gravity, which is the spin, which is the heart coherence. And so as we allow ourselves to tune into these signatures, these sets and symbols through either letters or wording or movements or patterns or mudras or thought frequencies of higher levels of maturity, it's a play on words. So we come back into a higher dominion, a higher frequency of appreciation, a higher attunement, at one-ment. And so what we feel that is happening all around us in the field is then interpreted and signaled back to us in a particular form. And so we are then informed. We are then accessing this information and then signaling it back out into the environment, into the field. This then becomes an exchange. We are exchanging with the frequency all around us that we are held within. And we are exchanging this information, and we tell the field what it is that we wish to know more of. Now, this is a play on words for we know more already, yet many of us are not accessing what it is that we know at our highest capacity that we could be. I'm hearing capacitance. For this is an electrical signaling, an electrical configuration. So the higher our electricity that we have access to, and the higher ability that we have to access this, or the higher capacity or capacitance that we are able to hold this charge. So I'll have to do a little recap on what this all means. But if you look up electrical engineering and capacitance is all play on words. We then begin to send out more charge. We begin to send out more signals. We begin to fire more synapses that allow us to create a frequency of information, language, signature, signals. I'm hearing signify, and I'm seeing Greek letters of the alphabet and Roman numerals. We then create our own code. We create a network, if you will, of information that holds a code that is the key to unlocking the code to more. Yet more is perhaps misunderstood. For many people are looking for more when they do not understand that they already have the score. So this is a play on words as well. Score is music. Score is the number. A count, a rhythm. And so then we begin to exchange information in real time. And what is real time? For time is not real from one perspective, yet it is real in the reality that we are interwoven and connecting into, that we are weaving. And so we are being called to create from this combination of higher frequency sets. As we set the bar higher, as we raise our standards, as we raise the orchestra, as we raise the symphony, as we raise the orchestration of the symphonic components that access our subconscious, or that we access at subconscious levels, or that our subconscious accesses or has access to, we begin to key in different frequency sets that create new keys, that create new combinations, that give us the access to, the combination to, the already known. I'm hearing be still and know. This is a difficult little play because I'm seeing so much as I say these words. I see the realm. So what I'm seeing are these keys just coming out of, like Harry Potter, right? It just appears because we're keying in a combination lock because of our heart coherence. So we stabilize our frequency. We send out a signal into the field, okay? It creates a geometric code in our bodies, in our DNA, that then opens this combination lock that we didn't even realize existed. And it unlocks a combination of more. So from another perspective, we're creating our reality. And when we allow ourselves to know more of who we are, coming into coherence and gratitude and appreciation, that key then appears. And it's like, ooh, there's another level to this game that didn't exist before, or that we didn't know existed before. Yet we know that it's been there the whole time. And that's a play on words about time. Does that make sense? I just went a little Alice in Wonderland there, but down the rabbit hole. But so we're creating our reality, but we're also accessing what's already been created that we didn't know we had access to. Yet deep within, we always knew that we are not only accessing something, we are the something that is giving us access to these higher codes. And while this multidimensional perspective seems very complicated and complex, we, my collective of fractals, that is me, of different frequencies and dimensions, we are offering a perspective of multidimensionality so that you can feel into the field that we are accessing. Me, we, all of us. So we then extend our feelers out into the field, which then extends itself back to us. And we begin to weave. So I'm seeing brain synapses. I've talked about this before. We create new synapses in the brain that create branches. Those branches become more signifiers. They signal and they fire. Oh, that's a play on words. They're signifiers of where we are in time. They signify, phi, P-H-I, the fractal. They signify, so we're looking at the fractal, Fibonacci. We're looking at the golden means, but there's more, because what I've been told over and over again is our numbers are being adjusted. So it has something to do with our geometrical and mathematical patterning That is the human blueprint and our DNA. But let's stay on track. So we send out these signifiers that signify to the field that we're ready for more. And then when we open to more, and that's a play on words, two, we double it up. I'm seeing cells dividing, but still remaining connected. We then allow ourselves to access into this, I'm seeing double to trifold. We become more. And when we become more, we know more. When we know more, it's that inner knowing within that gives us the ability to create a new dominion. This is all a play on words. Well, a new dimension, a new version of reality. From a very simplified version, I'm kind of going in and out of flow here. From a very simplified version, it all is based on our perspective, which is a geometric configuration or angle or spin that points us in a particular direction. And then we spin again and we see things, I'm seeing a 360 degree. We can see our past, we can see our future, we can see parallels. And these can seem, that's a whole other reality. We begin to line up with more of what it is that we truly, I'm hearing desire from the true inner fire that is our original blue star fire. I'm seeing, so I had this flow many years ago about sapphire. And when I say sapphire, it's sa, do, re, mi, sa, fa, la, ti, do. I always mess that up. Music is not my educational background in this reality, at least in this dimension. However, so it's sapphire, P-H-I-R-E. It's a staircase, it's DNA, and it's something having to do with this blue energy. And if I say the word blue, right? Blue, it has a sound. We associate it oftentimes with water. But when I see blue, I don't just see water, I do see fire. I see a flame. I see it as light. Oftentimes when I'm going into the field, I see a lot of blue light. And I see blue spheres around me all the time. That's a whole other story. So when we increase this fire inside of us, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, we're having help from the sun outside. It's stirring our senses inside. We are then firing at a higher, well, I always say rate of variability. So it creates an ability to respond and send out a response simultaneously to the environment, to the field. And this is this creationary aspect and the charge, and I'm hearing capacitance, that many of us are really beginning to access right now. And those synapses keep firing. Now, what I'm also being shown is that it's creating branches and we're connecting with our fellow starfire brothers and sisters who hold the same charge. Now, why would we want to attract someone that holds the same charge? It's helpful in some cases. I'm in flow right now. So it's helpful in some cases to attract that particular person of that particular lineage, play on words. I'm being called to stop and play with that. Line age, line of energy, line of frequency in this now moment that is at the age. So it's ready, right? It has a certain number associated with it, a certain geometry and a certain pattern in the vibratory field. And when two or more gather, it creates a bigger charge. And that's the double to triple. So we start to group together and create these families of energetic signals that then combined together signify an advancement. It signifies to the universe that we're advancing together in this collective formation. but we're also doing this on a unique individual level. So we're doing it, we don't necessarily, I'm being called to say, it doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to meet that other person in the physical. We're doing it whether we realize it or not. But I am being shown that more and more of us are going to connect with our star siblings. And so recognizing that these are our sisters and brothers from other dimensionary. So sometimes my guides make words and combine them together to combine those frequencies, patterns, dimensionary existences, dimensionary. That's a play on words. I'll have to play with that later. It's a portmanteau of dimensions and, okay. Squirrel. Got a little unorganized there for a minute. Let's bring it back in. And so this may be a highly advanced seeming or technical way of communicating, or it might just sound like gibberish. Yet this gibberish holds a spark as well. It holds a key to the alchemy that we create as humanity unfolds and expresses itself. So while we are communicating, I am communicating in this language format, we are simultaneously formatting how it is that we communicate with our environment, with one another, and the environment is simultaneously formatting or blueprinting for us, mapping this communication. And I'm seeing ATP, so it has something to do with proteins. I'll have to get back to that in a moment. My brain's going, whoa, whoa. My synapses are firing in my head. Is my head getting bigger? Feels like it is. Woo. And this can feel, I'm being called to talk about that, like pressure. So earlier I talked about the stuff coming from the sun, as above, so below, as within, so without. So this is happening inside of us because we are the sun from another aspect. So we're going to feel this pressure building. Under pressure. Pop, P-O-P. So we then signal to each other, let us play. Let us expand and play together. And I'm seeing playing on a playground, merry-go-round. What can we play with now? What can we create? How creative can we be? And we then attune and create a symphonetic, this is a play on words, symphonic and symphonetic kinetic adjustment in the field. We displace that which is no longer, we're creating a displacement. We're sending out a signal and it essentially dissolves, or it has an impact on everything. So it's that ripple effect. And this stabilizes, from one perspective, the new reality, or what many people have been calling New Earth, or what many people have been calling the fifth dimension. And so while this dimension already exists and we are already in it, from another perspective, we are simultaneously creating this higher dimensional field by what we are now. And that's the play on words, what we are holding now, the energy that we're holding, the creationary aspects, the feelings, the thoughts, and the patterns. And so sometimes it requires us to find a partner, and I'm seeing square dancing. Sometimes it creates a need for us to find a partner to yodel with. And this is a reference to the sound of music and just using our voices. So we come together in song, in dance, in art, in formation, and we combine these frequencies and it enhances one another. And so we are invited to use this star fire in unison with our star. We are being invited to, now I'm seeing why I was called to talk about the sun in the beginning of this video. We're being called to combine our frequencies as sis stars and brothers and use our inner star fire to create new patterns. For everything is a sound, a sonnet, a sonic, a sonnet, sun it, boom, boon, So I'm being called to play with all these words. This is a boon. This is a gift. It's a sonnet that is being sung by the universe in response to us singing out, this is what we are. This is what we are creating. And so it reaches back to us to give us the support that is required for us to bring up these new geometries. I encourage everybody to watch the movie, which I haven't watched it in a while, and I don't really remember it, but I do remember it had a huge impact. It was a synchronistic aha for me. I think it's called Sonic Geometry. It might actually be a movie. It's on YouTube. It kind of gives, and also any of Dan Winter fractal field information. Again, I haven't dove into it as deeply as I could, but it's all based on sound, frequency, color, harmonics, right? This matrix that we exist within. And this allows us to reformat our experience. This allows us to reformat our signals. It signals to us what our body then needs to reformat as well. Our cells are changing. Our cellular structure is going through transformative new figuration. That's a play on words, figure 8, infinity. It's going through a transformative restructuring at the cosmic, play on words, level. And I'm hearing cosmic, karmic, carbon. That's all kind of like that's all moving and morphing and shifting with this dynamo, play on words, back in relationship to the sun. So we will end on this note. As we upgrade, as we up level, as we increase our charge, we begin to hold more charge, and therefore we begin to hold more. We begin to know more, and we begin to have access to more notes. That's a play on words. So note is a value system as well as a musical chord. And it's also written. And so it is written on our DNA. And so it is written on the walls of the subway walks. Reference to Paul Simon and Garfunkel. So as we look at this, as we see each other for more than meets the eye, we begin to stand and see eye to eye on many different levels. That's a play on words. While we may feel the inability to cross paths with certain people that we see, we start to recognize the inequality that we have been seeing or perceiving things in the past. And this gives us the opportunity to equalize our experience, play on words. We begin to balance the scales, back to balance and harmony. We begin to equalize. I see you. And this may feel at times difficult, yet we are continually making adjustments as the human in order to create more abundant records. So, wow, records itself is a huge play on words. Records is obviously holding something, right? It is a recording. It's a sound we can go back and listen to, and it is stories. It's a story that's held on record. And this we then imprint into our architecture, our DNA architecture, and we download more bits of information that hold more. This is then passed on to future generations that gives them access to more. And this is, again, this is how we do it. This allows us to roll out. I'm hearing roll out the red carpet. Lots of references to old 2000 songs. Roll out. Was that Ludacris? Oh boy. Sorry if I got the artist wrong on that. But we begin to roll out, and I'm seeing this has a snowball effect. So, and I'm being shown the synapses again, all of these things branching out and creating more and creating more. And this is a good thing. We begin to feel into the goodness of humanity, and we come back to the original blueprint that has been perhaps put aside for some. And that's a play on words, like taking a side. When we take one side, we're not in balance with the true one that has many different angles, that is actually inside. All right, guys, I'm going to end on that note because I could just keep going and going and going. But for now, maybe I'll break down a little bit of this wordplay later, because I do think it's relevant to our physical expansion. So you can look for that in the future if it's something you feel called to play with, my wordology. In the meantime, in love and light, and thank you very much for being you, the unique individual you that we all are. Namaste.